Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Diaphone, and today we're going to be doing basically a Baiken matchup chart. It's been a few weeks since Baiken came out. I have a pretty good feel for what matchups I like, which matchups I don't like, and I'll also be comparing them to Ino because I play Ino and I can kind of tell which matchups I like playing Ino better in and Baiken in. So let's get started. Timestamps below. I'm going to keep this a little generic. I know a lot of people stratify their lists more, but I'm just going to have a good for Baiken, even, and then bad for Baiken. And so what makes a good matchup, in my opinion, for Baiken is one where I can use parry a lot. So someone that has like meaty projectiles, or someone that can do a lot of things to circumvent parry, such as Ramlethal, where she can throw a meaty sword and you can't parry the sword. That makes a matchup worse than, let's say, something I can use parry a lot in. Neutral is very important with Baiken. I think any matchup where Baiken can effectively zone and effectively like keep the opponent out, I think is really good. Yeah, matchups where Baiken's pokes have dominance over the other player's pokes, I think is also really important too. And then yeah, just in general, like, you know, is your offense effective against the other characters, and what's like the risk reward, how does that kind of figure into play? But the main things I'm looking at are neutral and how the tools interact. So Kai, all right, we're gonna get the hardest one out of the way. I'm actually not sure about this one, straight up. So I'm gonna put even on unsure. I actually think personally this matchup's bad for Baiken. There's a few things I don't like. I feel like the neutral's tough. I feel like Kai's pokes outclass Baiken's pokes, and I feel like Kai's really good stopping Baiken's air approach, right? Because one of Baiken's strongest tools, IED, JS, and the Yuzan-san, a lot of Kai's stuff, even like his fireball, recover fast enough that you can't just react with a JS Yuzan-san because you're just gonna get 6P'd, right? So it's really hard, in my opinion, to navigate Kai's tools. And then I feel like, you know, the offense, you can't really use parry that much because you're just gonna get me fireballed as well. And one other thing I don't like about the matchup is Stunted is actually kind of hard to punish. You have to like do 5H into H Kabari, which is like kind of hard to time because you don't really get anything else at that range, which kind of sucks. Like Ino has a way easier time to punish. You just do like 2K 2D or something, but yeah, Baiken you can't really do that. But a couple of things I do like, I think she has a really good answer to flip a Fuja arc. I mean, you could just parry it on reaction. That's really nice. I wish Ino could do something like that. And yeah, I think the risk reward is pretty good. Yeah, I think in general, like both Kai and Baiken have very similar risk rewards. So I'm gonna put an even or unsure just because that's where Kizzy put it. And like, if anyone knows this matchup, it should be Kizzy as a Baiken Kai dual main. But my gut says it's bad. All right, this is an actual bad matchup. Ramlethal, I think this might actually be Ramlethal's worst matchup. The reason I think that is, again, neutral is very hard. She outspaces your pokes. She can kind of approach from the air in different ways, makes it a little hard. She doesn't have good answers against the sword pressure, right? All she can really do is like dash forward, just like everyone else. She doesn't have like special ways to get out like Ino, where she can, you know, double jump dive, or she can stroke or something like that. The other thing is meaty sword's really good against Baiken. So, you know, you can't really use parry in this matchup outside of like mid screen, because if you risk a parry, you just do meaty sword and Baiken's dead. So you don't even have to really guess on like parry, no parry, which makes it, you know, defense really, really tricky in this matchup. And while I think Baiken has like a decent time mixing up Ramlethal, no DP and that sort of thing, I don't think it comes close. I think neutral's too bad. I think defending's too bad. I think it's quite a bad matchup, and you really have to make it count once you get in for it to be good. All right, Millia, I'm gonna put this even or unsure. I think Baiken has a few things going for her in this matchup. One, I think your air-to-airs are really good. You have JD to kind of like preemptive, keep Millia out of the sky. JS to kind of keep her, you know, to approach, or rising JS is just really strong in general, right? And like obviously the damage values are in your favor. Like you knock Millia down once and she's gonna suffer, right? And you don't have that hard time getting that knockdown if she's sticking to the air. But what I think Millia really excels in this matchup is just like staying on the ground. In the Ino matchup, you want to kind of go to the air a lot because you don't have, that way you don't have to deal with the stroke and approaches and that sort of thing. I think against Baiken, you want to stay in the ground a little bit more and make Baiken whiff, right? And Millia is the master of making Baiken whiff. Just make that 2H whiff once and you get in, you do your thing. Same thing with 2S. You can't really whiff punish it, but you can like at least press your advantage off of it. The other thing, you know, parry is like sort of effective against her mix-up, right? The HDS mix-ups, especially after sweep, don't parry. That's like useless. Even like after throw, like it's somewhat useful because then you can parry the safe jump, and if they're not safe jumping you, then you can get out. And then when Millia does some of the mix-ups like the left-right 50-50s with JH or like the OTG after throw, you know, you could just parry OS where you input put 236 P plus K, and then you'll block one direction and parry the other. I think that's really strong against her. So I think Baiken honestly has a lot of things going for her in this matchup. I want to say good, but like I just don't have enough experience, so I'm gonna put it even. Happy Chaos. I've barely played this matchup, but I'm gonna say it's bad. I mean, Happy Chaos, I think this character is very, very strong when played optimally. And I'm looking at this at like the highest level of play. You know, mid-level play, I think you could just JS Yuzansan your way in and then make him suffer. But I think it could be very scary if you're playing against a good Happy Chaos trying to get in. You don't have like any standout tools. I think H-Kabari is like a little too slow to be used effectively in neutral against Happy Chaos. You kind of have to rely on IEDs and getting in. I feel like Happy Chaos is very strong at the moment, and you need like something like a specific really good tool to fight her, whether it's like a fast projectile or forward advancing move or just like really good mobility. I don't think Baiken has either of those, so I think that just makes a disadvantage. So Nago, I don't think it's terrible. Parry's pretty effective. I mean, obviously doesn't work against command grab. The only thing you can really do like circumvent the parry slash mash 50-50 on defense is like meaty clone, and that's like pretty rare. It's kind of a list of a lot of blood meters, so I think your parry's pretty effective against Nago, which is nice. But I think neutral's kind of suffering. I'm not gonna lie. You can stay out of Beyblade range and like throw H-Kabaris, but that's very tough, and he's just gonna like snipe it out with like a clone or something. And you can try to go in, but his pokes kind of outrange you, and then obviously a risk reward, like he just shoots out damage, and he's obviously just very strong. So I think based on that, I think it's bad on Baiken, but you know, you can whiff punch some of this, like even just JS Yozansan against him, like on reaction to like a whiff poke is really good. Get in and then, you know, mix your stuff. But I'm gonna say it's bad, but I don't think it's as bad as the other two. All right, Soul. I think Soul actually might be even though I think very highly of Soul still. I think he's a strong character. I think I'm gonna put it even. So something's going for him. You know, you get a safe jump off pretty much any knockdown. You know, he kind of has a BS 5k, but it's not really that effective on defense outside of like a block Yuzansan. But if you do it low to the ground, I'm pretty sure you can still beat reversal 5k. So that's not as effective as it might be like, let's say in the Ino matchup. I think H-Kabari is pretty effective against him, and even your pokes kind of outspace him as well. JS Yuzansan is really good against Fun Flame. So I think you have a lot of tools. Parry's also pretty effective against him too. You can parry some stuff like Bandit Revolver, Ground Bandit Revolver, and Block Strings, which is not an option not a lot of people have. But I think just the pure damage that Soul has, the pure risk reward that Soul has, and the fact that he's such a strong character, I think takes us to even. But I think you have a lot of good things in this matchup for sure. Potemkin. So I actually don't think the Potemkin matchup's that bad. People like when this game first came out, where was the Potemkin Twitter clip? Yeah, so when this game first came out, or this character first came out, people were like, oh my god, like you tether Potemkin and now you're just screwed. Like you just die in one combo because you could get like two heavily Potemkins, or like they could just keep mega fisting. But like that's not what makes the matchup bad. You're not doing tether on block. That's fine. You just don't do S tether on block. That's an easy solution, right? And like I think the neutral is not bad. You know, slide head can be beaten with JS Yuzansan. Very good option against that. Mega Fist can be parried. That's pretty good. You don't get the best punish on some of it, right? Like a block Mega Fist, you can get like 2k at some ranges. You can't get much. Block Hammerfall, you don't get the best punish on either. Yeah, I think general the options are pretty good. You know, you can run your 50-50 game on Pot really well because he's a defensive option, and he's really tall. Makes the like your JS JH on Oki like really effective. It's like very foolproof to stop his options. And you can parry Garuda, which is really nice. You have a good option against a shield super. Any distance, you just do your gun. It goes through the shield and punishes it. Yeah, you have a lot of options against Potemkin. And like, yeah, parry is a lot better on defense than you think because, you know, you can mix up between parry and jump, right? So even though he has a command grab and it does a lot of damage, like he still has to take that risk to command grab you. And that risk is not something that will beat your other options like mash and jump. Wait, you could parry the first hit of Gigantic? Wait, oh my god, are you serious? I wish I knew that like yesterday when I was playing against Shine. That's pretty sick. See, I'm thinking this is like either good or even actually. You just have to play it a little differently. Less H-Kabaris in neutral, more whiff punishes, and more JS on Sans. I'm gonna put it in even for now though. All right, Goldlewis, I think this matchup's good. H-Kabari is really annoying for Goldlewis to deal with. You have a lot of preemptive stuff that can keep him out of the air. JS obviously very strong against him. Parry is very, very good. So a lot of things like you can't really act to JD, but you can parry JD, right? Even though if you can't 6p it. Parry is very good against deterring some of his mix up. You know, some of the stuff like his overhead, Behemoth Typhoon, that's parryable too. I feel like you can kind of finesse him. Like you can just make him whiff and then go with like a 2S or 2H. H-Kabari Ishikibari spam. I like the matchup a lot. It's hard for him to get stuff out too, because you can kind of like play those mid ranges and make him commit to something and then punish him for it. He's tall, which means he can do GH Uzan 50-50 stuff easier. Yeah, I think it's a good matchup. Baiken, obviously that's even, right? Unless you're Jayuna. 2011 Jayuna. It's a 7-3 matchup. Anyways, all right, Ino. I think Ino's a good matchup as well. And I play both. I feel like I'm probably the most qualified person to talk about this matchup. So let me talk about it a little bit. All right, what does Ino not like to fight against, right? Good reversal options and buttons that beat both stroke and hover dash. And Baiken has both of those, right? Baiken has the 2S, which beats stroke and it beats hover dash. And parry's really effective against Ino. You know, it forces Ino to go for a lot of notes on knockdowns you don't really want to go for a note on. And weakens your mix up a lot. Actually, like half for knockdowns, you really can't go for a note, which means that you kind of have to play this parry game, and that really deters the effectiveness of Ino. Like your offense is quite effective against Ino, you know, no DP, ways to deter our offense. I think in neutral, you're kind of winning against Ino too. You have good ways to snipe out note with like 2H. I think it's a very good anti-note button. You have very good air-to-airs just to like preempt with like JS and JD. But I mainly use JS. Even just throwing tatami mats just to kind of stop her approach is good. Couple things that Ino does have going for her in this matchup. Like I said, you can throw notes meaty and like kind of keep her away from parry. And 6P is really good, right? Baiken does not like playing against people with good, quick 6Ps because it stops a lot of Ishikibari stuff and it stops a lot of her approach. And Ino has like one of the best 6Ps, right? So that 6P is super good against Baiken. But other than that, like I think Baiken definitely has the advantage in this matchup. All right, where are we at? Giovanna. I think this is even. This is a weird matchup. I feel like we're both playing pretty honestly. We're trying to like zone each other out with normals. Kind of weird. You know, I was actually playing a lot against Gio today, and you're just kind of like doing a lot of back to Tommies, a lot of 2S's, a lot of 2H's. Trying to get her block at 2S, trying to get her to whisk something, right? And then you can do 2H. I think parry is very, very effective against Gio in her offense, right? You can react with spiral arrow. You can react to the flip kick both with 236P. The 236P plus K OS is really good against Gio too for the flip kick. Yeah, it just feels really honest. Like we're both playing very honestly. She has slightly better neutral. You have slightly better mix, slightly better defense too. Yeah, kind of hard to say. It could go either way. May, I think May is even or bad. Yeah, I'm not sure about May. I think I'm gonna put her in even because it doesn't feel terrible. So my thoughts on May is that like, I think in theory, it looks like it should be pretty decent, right? Like parry's obviously pretty strong against her. You have good buttons to keep her out of the air. The thing that I find really annoying against May is actually the ground game. I find stuff like her 5H really hard to deal with. And like she's pretty good at like making you whiff, and like Baiken's hitboxes aren't the best while they are far. They're not very disjointed compared to May's, and I feel like you can get beat out a lot. So it's something that I have trouble in the matchup, and maybe I just need to learn it more. But I think in theory it shouldn't be that bad. You know, you got good ways to stop a lot of her approaches. Even something like Ishikibari, just to throw around, it's not bad. She can run into some tatami mats. Parry's pretty decent, but yeah, it's like there's nothing overwhelming to definitely put in good. And I feel like the damage that May puts out and some of her risk reward could potentially put it in the bad section. All right, so Chipp, this is gonna be my hot take. I think Baiken might beat Chipp. I will say this is the matchup that as the Ino player, this feels pretty hard. And then when I play Baiken against Chipp, I'm like, this feels way easier. I think it might be part of it is like the difference between the two, which is kind of why like I'm thinking here. So it's probably around here, to be honest. I also haven't played a super strong Chipp yet. But the reason I think that is compared to Ino, no defensive options. You don't have to really deal with DP because you have like auto time safe jumps. Yeah, Chipp dies with 3 parries. Parry's actually pretty good against Chipp. If Chipp wants to do something parry safe, he has to go for like a meaty alpha blade or like a meaty command grab. But when you're always looking for that, it makes it a lot easier to defend against, right? Every Chipp player would agree if I said it was good for Baiken. That's actually true. So let's say you get hit by a K alpha blade. What do the Chipps like to do? They get to go the left right 50-50 jumping. Parry OS shuts that both down, right? Same thing with the corner mix up. Yeah, I think parry's just like a godsend. And you just land that one parry and like you half won the game. The damage reward you get off of like some of your options as Baiken just feels really good. You could do a lot of things just to like keep Chipp out. Wow, okay, that's actually really good. Holy shit. That's still really good. How do I do Rekka? Why is 5P 6P so hard? All right, whatever, you guys get the point. All right, so to be honest, I have no clue about Axel. I can't decide about Chipp. Maybe I should be more conservative. I'll put it down here. Axel sucks versus Baiken on God. That's what Kizzy says too. Please enlighten us. Why is Axel suck versus Baiken? Because this is the one matchup I literally haven't played. I've played all these other matchups except Axel versus Baiken. Yeah, Kizzy thinks Axel loses. This is the only matchup I literally haven't played. I feel like you could pretty effectively keep Baiken out. I assume you're just talking about like this shit, right? That's hard to deal with. I guess you don't really get that much reward off this. And like, yeah, the risk reward here is kind of shitty. And like, you can't really get a 2S. Well, you can, but you have to be like a, yeah, that's really hard to get a 2S. Probably don't have it. Yeah. Okay. I can see what you mean. Like the risk reward here is like not that good. I guess you get H now, right? I'm playing on PS4 pads, so it's kind of hard for me. Like, yeah, it's just more the risk reward getting in and like JS beating a lot of things. Anti-air 6K. I don't know if you could do that in reaction. Yeah, I can't do that in reaction. Yeah, no. Does Zombie block Renstone? I don't know. I literally know nothing about this matchup. No. Just goes right through. I say good for Baiken. Just because like everyone's saying it's good for Baiken, and I can see it in my head. Just your approach being really good mix up. All right, so Anji I think is good as well. I think neutrals, like obviously spin's really strong. You can bait it out. There's that kind of neutral mind game going on. I think Anji's just in general like a little undertuned, and parry's very good. And he doesn't really have good ways to stop parry outside like meaty fireball. You have decent ways to stop fireball, whether it's like in neutral like JS, Yuzan-san, 2H. One of the other things I think is like really good for Baiken is that I think Baiken's the only character that can reliably ignore counter on wake up. And what I mean by that is you could just do IED Tatami, and if they counter the Tatami, you can parry his counter and you don't have to worry about it. Like some of the stuff that like he can get out really easily against Ino, like anytime you do a meaty note, just do counter after like a specific setup to beat it, you know. Baiken doesn't care. Me Tatami and parry the counter. Yeah, in general, like I think it's just Anji being undertuned, Baiken being better character, and having decent neutral against him, and parry being effective. All right, Jago, this is gonna be a hot take. I actually think Baiken loses this. I haven't played it much, but and it might be just because like I'm an Ino player and I never really learned the matchup because I could just H stroke and dive kick my way in. I mean, it feels so much harder for Baiken against Jago than it does Ino. Like I feel like it's really hard to JS in because I'm just getting clipped by JDs or random minions. Jaco's natural angles that she covers kind of cover the angles that Baiken wants to approach at. Parry's not the best because you have meaty minion stuff. Yeah, that's just my general feeling. I can't really elaborate on it too much other than like it just feels really hard to get in compared to when I play Ino. Very unscientific. All right, so Faust, I personally thought Faust was here because your neutral is just good against getting in. H Kabari is really strong. And then I realized Faust can duck H Kabari. Absolute game changer. So anytime you do H Kabari in a block, it's really hard to end your block strings. Like you do a space 2H against Faust, try cancel on the H Kabari, you get punished for it. It's pretty messed up actually. And so it's like you have this weird like spacing where it's hard to end your block strings or even just like play neutral because you want to do H Kabari. H Kabari is really good against item toss, really good against a lot of his things that he wants to do, but then he could just scroll. So I think just based on that, and like obviously Faust has pretty good ways to stop Baiken approach, but it's still like Baiken's a pretty good character. Once you get in, you mix his stuff. Parry's okay against him. It's not the best, but it can still be used. JS is really good. Gets like shutting down stuff like drill. Honestly, in my heart of hearts, I think Leo might be even too. It's still something I'm not super sure of. I think parry is a godsend against Leo. I think being able to option select your parry for either side kind of shuts down a lot of his mix-up. JS, Yuzansu is really good against fireball zoning, so you can't spam fireballs very well. I also give safe jumps out of everything to beat DP, which is nice, but again, it's Leo. He's just super good character, so I think that's what brings it back down to even. And then Zato, I think is even too. I still think people underrate Zato. I think very highly of him. I think he does well. And I could potentially see him as being bad because like Zato is just in my mind very cracked out. Parry's not very effective against Eddie. You can't parry the Eddie. But I think, you know, you have decent round start options against him. It's hard for him to get started. JS is really good against like his flight, so you can keep him out of the air. H Kabari is surprisingly really good. You can just kind of like spam it, try to just hit the Eddie, which is nice. You know, or you can do like something like poke Eddie into H Kabari just to check the Zato player. And obviously once you get in, it's pretty suffering for Zato, but it's the same thing when Zato gets in on you, right? The one time I will parry in this matchup is like, let's say the Zato's going for like the 2D, 5D mix up. Usually there's like just a small enough gap when they do that you can parry. They make them think twice, you know? But yeah, I think the neutral's not bad for Baiken, and they both like mess up the other dude on defense. All right, guys, where you disagree? I like how this came out. This character looks mid-tier, which is where I think Baiken's gonna end up, is like mid-tier. I don't think she's the worst. I don't think she's the best. Matchup spread looks like a mid-tier character. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. You know, it takes like months and months to fully flush these out, so wouldn't be surprised if I look back in the 6 months and be like, man, what was I smoking back then? But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are down in the comments below. So let me know. If you want to see more content like this, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. We're trying to get should I say this? I was debating on my next YouTube video and be like, I want to make sure I can get early copies of video games. So consider like, sharing, and subscribing to help increase my clout. We need to hit that minimum subscriber threshold so we can get an early copy of DNF Duel. So consider like, sharing, and subscribing to help grow the channel. Now, seriously, if you like content like this, of course, consider like, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.